Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the third instalment of our 4-part webinar series for the legal and professional services sectors. Good to have you on the webinar today. This series is all about helping you get the most out of your 365 licensing and 365 platform, whether that's improving how your team works together through collaboration or simplifying things like day-to-day tasks and processes through automation, or just making better use of the tools that you've actually already got and you already pay for. Today in the episode today, we'll be covering the Microsoft Power Platform, automation and BI. So it should be really interesting. So I hope you find it interesting yourselves. We'll keep things nice and practical and straightforward with some demonstration material, which Mike will go through later on. Just a quick introduction. So myself, for those that I've not met, my name's Gavin Turnbull. I'm the managed services consultant here at Central Technology. Mike?
Yeah, I'm Mike Owen. I'm Modern Workplace Director with Yoko 10. So that's basically everything that's Microsoft 365.
In terms of housekeeping, we're going to keep cameras and microphones turned off so that questions can actually be funneled through the Q&A section of the Teams button that you should see on the screen. So any questions we'll try and work through as we go through the webinar, and there'll also be an opportunity at the end to ask questions as well. We'll also send our contact details across in follow-up. So if you want to book any time, if anything has really sparked any interest, or you just want to know more, or want to go through some of the challenges maybe you've experienced, then you can book some one-on-one time with myself and Mike to go through them specifically for your organisation. So just quickly, in terms of CT, quick introduction, won't keep you too long on this one. We were founded in 2002 as a business, as a managed service business. So we've got over 20 years experience in IT and technology managed services. So we're trusted by over 37 legal organisations and 50 professional services businesses across the UK. We support organisations and customers across the UK from our head office in Derbyshire and Chesterfield, with additional branches, of course, in Leicester and Dorset as well. Our sort of thing we hang our hat on in terms of our approach is our strategic approach for our strategic review process. So we really get to know our customers from a board level perspective to help them achieve their objectives and challenges through the use of technology. Services that we provide as well include managed services, IT support, as you'd expect, cybersecurity services, cloud solutions, and communications such as phone systems, mobile phones, and internet service provision as well. So yeah, over to you, Mike, in terms of taking things forward, and I'll turn my camera off and my microphone off.
All right, thanks, Gav. So by way of agenda for this morning's session, it's going to be a very high-level introduction to the Microsoft Power Platform and the components within it. So for each of the main components, I'll kind of go through what it is, how to get the most out of it, a bit of licensing, and then also go into some demo around sort of what it looks like, where you'll see it. Because with some of these applications in the Power Platform, you probably already use them. You might not realize you're using it because it's built into SharePoint or built into Teams, but they are sort of heavily embedded within the Microsoft suite of tools. So the Power Platform itself has been around since about 2018. It's what's referred to as a low-code platform. So you don't need to be a developer and sort of deep into the weeds in terms of the code to make use of it. And it's really there to help power users, people within the business, build solutions to help them with their jobs, with sort of gaining more efficiencies, gaining some time back by automating things. Now, I'm actually only going through the top row in terms of this morning's presentation. Copilot we're actually doing as a separate webinar next week, because there's such a lot to sort of cover by itself. But just briefly, we've got Power Apps, which is going to enable you to create a custom application, and that will sit on your laptop, or it can sit on a tablet or on a phone. It's sort of done in a responsive way. So you create one app, but then you can use it on multiple different devices, and it will reshape, resize itself in order to fit on the device that you're viewing on. Now, Power Automate is a bit like, I always describe it as a hub and spoke model. It sits in the middle of your spoked wheel, and it connects to different services, different applications. It's a workflow tool to either integrate two applications together, or to sort of create a process that you might already have manually, but now we can sort of digitize that, automate it, make it run on a scheduled basis or on a specific event if we wanted to. Power BI is there to sort of visualize your data, helps you sort of then analyze the data further, so we can start to sort of, instead of just having a great big spreadsheet with all our sort of numbers and dates and sort of data on, we can then start to slice through that to see how your sort of the business is made up, or whatever that data is, slice it in different ways. Now, Power Pages is one of the kind of newer in the last 2, maybe 3 years now, actually, but it enables you to create a kind of a front door for your clients. So if I wanted to log in to gain access to some client services, Power Pages is the application that Microsoft now provide. They used to actually do websites through SharePoint, but years ago decided that that was a bad play, and there were other sort of easier ways of doing it in the market at the time. And then finally, Copilot Studio. You might have heard reference to Power Virtual Agents in the last few years. Well, that's now become Copilot Studio. The enhancement, or the kind of development of AI tools, particularly in the Microsoft space, there are a few products which are basically either being renamed or deprecated completely, even though they've only been around for a few years. One of them is called Viva Topics. They've stopped all development on that because of the speed that Copilot was progressing. So with this collection of tools, effectively we're then able to go sort of automate processes, create applications to fill gaps, view all the data as well. And now, Copilot, the AI is going to be sort of layered on top of just about everything Microsoft touches, frankly. But before we start giving this out to all of our users and starting to see some of those benefits, we've really got to be a little bit careful. Anyone who's used SharePoint for more than a few years is probably well aware of the site sprawl that can happen if we don't sort of put a layer of governance sort of around a product. So the Power Platform licenses are included with pretty much at a base level every license that Microsoft has, whether that's one of your kind of small business premiums or E1s, E3s. There is an element of the Power Platform within all of those. So if everyone starts using the Power Platform on day one to build workflows or to try apps, quite quickly we could get in a bit of a mess where maybe data from internal systems is being inadvertently exposed, or we're building a kind of a reliance on an application that our IT teams do not know anything about. So this is where having some governance really sort of comes into its own. In the same way that if we had a large system that we were developing, we'd have some kind of environment strategy where we can have a play area. We can go and develop these applications, develop the workflows, and then when it's ready for mass consumption, we move it across to another environment. By default, everyone who is licensed for the Power Platform will have access to a default personal productivity environment, let's call it. You can go and create your own workflows, create your own applications. But if we then start to see these being used by more than a few people, that's when we ought to be kind of going out, understanding what the application is, what the workflow is, and really kind of putting some support around that. So we do have the ability to sort of monitor these environments, provide some alerts, create what's known as a managed environment, so that within our kind of development environment, I can't share it with 30, 40, 50 people. I can only share it with a few for testing purposes. We also have the ability to create data loss prevention policies. Now, if you're on last week's webinar, we talked about data loss prevention policies in the context of files and emails, and what happens if I try and share an internally confidential file with an external recipient. That data loss prevention here is looking at how can we connect to data within our environment. So in our development environment, we might say you cannot connect to our SQL databases. You can only connect to Outlook or SharePoint or OneDrive or whatever that might be. So those data loss prevention policies help you protect certain sources of information where we've got lots of people trying things out. We might also want to be able to look at the licensing side of things here, because although we've got a basic license, we can have an uplift on that to be able to access what are referred to premium connectors. Now, those premium connectors do include SQL databases, as mentioned earlier, but it could also be a connection to Azure services if you really want to sort of add some additional functionality into your process or your application. Now, fortunately for all of this, there are plenty of adoption guides available. So Microsoft has a site called adoption.microsoft.com. And within that, there's a Power Platform adoption guide. So that really sort of helps you go through some of this governance, the things you need to be aware of prior to kind of unleashing this potential sort of productivity and efficiency gains on the whole organization. So let's start off with Power Automate first, because this one is kind of inbuilt into a few applications already. So Power Automate actually comes in a few different flavors, if you like, our types of workflows. The most common one is a cloud flow. So I might have a SharePoint document library and I want to turn on approvals for those documents. That's actually using a Power Automate workflow in the background for that. We can also create desktop workflows. Now, these are especially useful if you have some more legacy systems, let's say, where you want to integrate that legacy data with some of your cloud data. Well, having those desktop workflows allows you to record a macro. So if you remember the macros that you used to have in Word, where you can sort of record your clicks and sort of save that process of clicks, that's very similar to what the desktop flavor of Power Automate can do. It just then also allows you to define what data can be filled in. So you can automatically fill in a screen of information through a workflow without it being cloud connected or without using an API, an application programming interface. A workflow then basically has three main parts to it. We always have some sort of trigger. Now, a trigger can be run this workflow on a scheduled basis. Every Monday morning, look at some information, send an email, whatever that might be. But we can also have it triggered manually. So I want to start it as of right now using a button built into a site, built onto my phone, or we can do it via an event. So when a new email comes into my inbox, When a new item's added to a SharePoint list, maybe when a document's being modified, go and run this workflow. We then have connectors. And a connector enabled Power Automate to go and talk to the end service. So I've mentioned things like Outlook and SharePoint and OneDrive and SQL. So for each one of those services, we would have a connector that tells Power Automate how to talk to SQL, how to authenticate and what they can do. The same with SharePoint. How do you want me to connect to this SharePoint site in order to see the new documents being created? So those connectors in my hub and spoke model, they're very much the spokes connecting out from Power Automate. For each one of those connectors, it then allows you a number of actions. Some of the actions are built into Power Automate, so like logic branching and some switches, things like that. You then have some standard connectors. So most of the standard actions. Most of the Microsoft applications have some standard actions. So create a list item or modify list items or send an email. They're all examples of standard actions. Where we have premium actions, this is where we need the elevated licensing within Power Automate. So if I want to interact with a SQL database, I would need a premium license to connect to SQL. That would then unlock all of those premium actions for me. All of the actions, both built-in, standard and premium, they're all available on the Power Automate website. We can also get to it through through the landing page within Power Automate. There's a learn section that links you to all of that content. So I've mentioned most of these already. So the idea of scheduled processes, we used to have batch jobs running on servers on a sort of overnight basis. We can do the same thing with workflows now. Instant flows, those sort of start on demand. We actually use the kind of on a selected item quite a lot. Imagine if you've got a lot of documents in an intranet and you want to request approval for a specific item. You need to know which item you're selecting, so you can run it based on the item that you've selected. And then we've got this idea of automated on creation, on modification, receipt of email, those sort of things. Right, I've pretty much covered all this, so I'm not going to go back through that, but the link here, that will take you to all of those different actions and connectors that you've got. So getting started with workflows, there's two main areas, if you like. You're either going direct to the Power Automate app when you're logged in to portal.office.com. When you're logged into Office 365, you can go and open that Power Automate app. Or you can actually start within a list or document library that's surfaced through SharePoint or Teams. So I'll go through both of those and show you sort of how to quickly get started. But just to touch on the licensing side of things, I'd say most of the standard connectors already included. If you're looking to have a number of people be involved in a workflow and requires a premium connector, so we're exchanging data with SQL or another third party, you would need a premium license. And unfortunately, that is a premium license for every user that interacts with that workflow. There used to be a bit of a loophole where it's like, well, if you've put a service account against this, can just the service account, that's referred to as duplexing on the licensing. You're not supposed to do that in line with the agreement. We do have this option now of having a Power Automate process license. So that is pretty much that kind of service account model where we'd say, right, we know we're going to run this on a regular basis and 50 people receive the emails off the back of it. Well, rather than sort of having everyone licensed, we might just sort of put this process license in instead. And if we want to have that all hosted by Microsoft within Azure Kit, we've also now got this hosted process license. Right. I'm going to switch over, share my screen, and then we will have a little look at some of the options. Right, so I'm going to start off in our intranet to begin with. So within our intranet, we've got a number of documents that that we have available, kind of policy hub, if you will. But what I want to be able to do with this is that when people have edited those documents, I want to be able to request an approval for those. Okay. So here's my number of documents. We've got some metadata against them. So when it was last reviewed, types of documents. So if I'm looking for guidance or process maps or guidelines, that sort of thing. But what I want to be able to do is then say, well, I need to be able to turn on some approval process. So when I go and click on a specific document, I want to be able to say, how do I approve this particular item? So if we go and look at this integration option, I can see that I can configure some built-in workflows here. And so here, I just want to turn the approvals on and request sign off on a piece of content. Now in the background, that also adds some additional columns for this particular document library. So we're able to, right, just select the wrong one, we'll soon find out. We're able to sort of go in and request that this gets signed off straight away. I have just a minute. We'll change this around to be content approval flow. Okay, so now I can start to see some approval statuses on all of these documents. Okay, so here's my 2024 framework, and I would like to get this approved or rejected. So based on my my current permissions within this library, I can go and approve or reject this. If I didn't have the permissions that I have, I could say, well, actually, I want to request sign off for this. I want to sort of go generate an email based around that. So instead, let's also look at, let's go approve this one first. So just by having these approval states, we can start to change the permissions to say that any document that is set as pending is not actually visible to the wider audience. It's only available to owners within this particular library. If we want to start a new workflow entirely based on this location, we can still go in here and we'll say, I want to I want to go and create a new, I want to go and integrate direct to Power Automate, and I want to create a new flow. So this will give me a whole load of templates based on where I am. So do I want to request sign off and approval? Do I want to post a message based on a selected file? All of these are templates that are available within Power Automate. So by clicking on some of these, so I want to request approval for a specific file, that's going to open me up into Power Automate. It's going to then look at the different connectors that this out-of-the-box flow uses. And it's going to say, I want to sign in as you. So obviously, here's my admin account. It would have your account there, depending on how you're signing in. And I'll then say, create this flow. So what's that has done now in the background, I click on edit up here in the top left. It's actually started to put together a trigger. So on a selected file, it's put the connectors in. So that approval screen was connecting to SharePoint and to Outlook in order to send these notifications. And it's put all of these actions in place for me. So I can see that this is trying to connect using our admin account. So that's the connector. This is our trigger right at the top. It's always the first one there. And then we've got some actions and logic to sort of make sure that our approval flows are started and responded accordingly. So really easy to get a template sort of up and running very quickly. If I actually show you the create screen for Power Automate, so this is just going straight into Power Automate without going via SharePoint. I can now see I want to start from blank, or I want a scheduled workflow, but then there's a whole load of templates underneath here. And depending on which connector you want to start from, it will give you a whole load of pre-created templates that you can then start from and adapt depending on your process. Now, the final bit that I wanted to cover off as part of Power Automate side of things is that a common scenario that we will encounter is that we might have a spreadsheet that's tracking a whole load of information. So here I've got some training requests. People within the business are registering the fact that they want some induction training, some I-manage training, sort of law specific here. But we then want to do something with this. I want to be able to track this. Maybe I want to send emails to the trainers based on the course dates, whatever it is. Now, Excel's fine, but we can directly import this into SharePoint to say that I would like to create a list using that Excel data. So SharePoint lists, Microsoft lists, same thing, slightly different branding, will allow you to import Excel, import from CSV, or just start from a complete blank if we wanted to, so that we're now taking what was a spreadsheet to really add some extra functionality to it. So this is just checking that, that I want to import all of this data. I'm allowing it to change these data types. So department isn't free text anymore. I want to apply a little bit of validation to it. I'm not really bothered about that column. I want this to be a choice, and yeah, that makes no sense as a date, so I'll switch that as well. And then I'll just import it. Yeah, lovely. So quite quickly, I've gone through a bit of a kind of setup exercise to understand what my data is going to be, how it's going to look when it comes into the list. And there we go. All my data directly into SharePoint. And if I go and click on this new item, now it's going to give me the free text fields. It's going to say, well, here are the departments that you've currently got. So I might need to do some work to include other departments or other courses. But all of the basic validation is already there. The one thing that I'd really like to do is to make the trainer an actual person, because within SharePoint, within Office 365, we've got the ability to store information about people. It's part of your, whoops, trainer, there we go. We've got the ability to know who is logged in at the moment, therefore departments, therefore email addresses and things like that. Now, because I've got the email address here, I can put this into a grid view. So this is very much like Excel, literally sort of going down this whole column. Let's go a bit further, drag to the bottom. Control C, copy, and oh no, yeah. Let's grab that again. Well, lovely. Right, hang on a minute. We'll do it for the first one and see. So we can see it recognized the account details at the top here, based on who, based on the account that I've got selected. So that's going to really help us with some of our workflows, because now I can sort of look at the person's name, email address, or all those sort of other pieces of information. Now, a couple of things we can do directly with lists. I can start to provide some rules in here. So a rule is a very quick version of a workflow. So as a number of days appears, so 30 days before the course date, send an email to the course trainer. Done. Right. So every time we're 30 days out from the requested training, that's automatically going to happen. So now I've taken away something that potentially I had to check on my Excel spreadsheet. And if we want to take it a bit further, we've still got the integration with Power Automate. The other bit that we can do quite quickly on the list side is that I don't want people adding this title here, and I don't want people requesting certain trainers or adding notes. That's more of a back-end functionality. So we can start to do this kind of idea around editing the columns. And this is almost a precursor into what we can do with Power Apps. So once I've saved that screen, now see that we've hidden certain elements. I could go and hide the attachments as well if I wanted to, but so far we are at this point where I've now got some information that I can now work on, send as part of a workflow or via one of the rules, and we'll turn this into an app in just a moment. Let's just switch back. Okay, so next we'll quickly go through the ideas behind Power Apps. So that Power Apps is this sort of suite of applications and services and connectors to really enable rapid development. Typically when we had applications that needed to be created, we're talking sort of months and years of development work. But Power Apps enables very rapid prototyping. We can put together a screen very quickly, drag and drop functionality, but then the code that sits behind it is very much like Excel macro functionality. So you start to type a formula, it tells you what it needs, and you can go from there. So Microsoft's idea is that, well, if you know Excel, you can probably have a good stab at sort of working within Power Apps. Similar to Power Automate, we can go and connect to lots of different data sources directly from within Power Apps. So I could connect to my SharePoint data. I could then trigger an email, so therefore connecting to Outlook in that way. So all of the connectors, pretty much all of the connectors we have available in Power Automate, we can also leverage within Power Apps. Power Apps is also built with responsive design as standard. So that means that I'm building one application, I can then use that app on a laptop, I could use it on my phone, and it's going to change the size of the application depending on the device that we're using it on. We've also got the ability to integrate with workflows. So if we were doing something a little bit more complex and we needed a full workflow to be available, we can add that directly into our Power App. We can also extend it a lot further. We can build custom connectors. So if there isn't an existing first-party or third-party connector that's been made available within Power Apps or Power Automate, you are actually able to create custom connectors to integrate with your data. And that can be a two-way thing as well, depending on how it's been configured. From a licensing perspective, well, we've got something similar to Power Automate. We're able to go and get started with Power Apps just using our standard licensing. If we then start to encounter a need for premium connectors, yes, we can go and uplift that license on a per user basis. There is also a discounted premium license depending on how many seats you have or how many users need to use the application within your organization. In terms of getting started, again, very similar to Power Automate. I can go directly to Power Apps, create from a template, or I can start from SharePoint or Teams, look at the integrate, and then go and sort of create apps based off that. Let's switch back again. We'll go and have a look at some of these different scenarios. So first off, when I come into Power Apps, if I go to the Create option on the left-hand side, it's going to be very similar to Power Automate. They all start off the same sort of thing. What kind of app do you want to create? Do you want to base it off a template? So some of these are pre-built templates and they're fairly functional without you doing an awful lot to them. Also, as I mentioned, there is a Learn area, and this is for all of the Power Platform suite. You can go in and sort of go through some of the curated content that Microsoft have available. It's pulling it in from their Learn platform, but it's all sort of neatly available in one location. So if I want to go and have a look at, so here's one of the pre-built apps, just to show you what it would, what it looks like under the surface here. So as an editor of the app, and you can share permissions, so multiple people instead of like one point of failure, if you like. We can edit these apps directly in the browser. We can also then test the apps directly in the browser if we wanted to. So let me just skip this. So here, this is a screen that Microsoft have already created. If I click on this label at the top here, I can see that this is where we're starting to see some of that that text, the Excel-like formulas. So I can quickly adapt what the message is going to be displayed. If I look at one of the buttons here, I can see that we've got a number of kind of formulas that are being used in order to go and change some dates, navigate to screens, things like that. So if I click on the play option at the top here, I can see that I want to try and book a meeting room. It's got some dates, got some times. It's linking into your resource calendars within Exchange. So you say, well, go and find me a meeting room that's available for, well, not for a midnight meeting, that's a bit extreme, for a 9 o'clock 1 hour meeting on the 9th. And it's able to go through the calendars against those resources to be able to say, great, I want to go and book meeting room 1. That will then send an email. So all of that is pre-built. That's just one of the templates. Now, if I want to see what that would look like on a different device, when you're playing the app, you can say, okay, I want to show it on a tablet. So show me what it would look like if I was running on an Apple tablet. Show me what it would look like if I was on a Samsung Galaxy. Maybe I want to change orientation. Okay, so this one hasn't been fully adapted to work in portrait and landscape mode, but we've got the ability to sort of modify those things as we go. Now, if I go back to my training data here, there's two things we can do with lists. We saw earlier that I was able to quickly hide some of these options just using this option here for edit columns. But if I click on apologies, go back and go into integrate and go to Power Apps, and I want to customize these forms. Now I can do a lot more with that new form. I can change the layout of it if I want. So it's no longer just a standard sort of vertical display of information. Maybe I want to move it around or make certain elements, well, remove certain elements. I don't need to see the sensitivity labels, the retention label that's always visible. So I might want to just go and hide that field on the form. You can't do that natively in the options that Microsoft give you. So Power Apps is able to directly integrate with those list forms to then create a better form for your experience without really going too deep into the code. Okay, skip that. So here's my form again. I've got some attachments, and I don't really want the attachments to be shown. So I can see this part of the card's got this lock on it. So what I need to do is actually say, well, go and unlock this area first. So now that it's unlocked, I can manipulate it. So I just want to delete it. I don't need that bit. And if I then go and publish this, that's going to save that form back into SharePoint. So when I next go in, let's publish that. Even though list attachments are still configured, I won't actually have the option to go and add a list attachment via this form. So I can see now, look, I did not want vocal guide. We can see now it's just going to try and fetch that information from Power Apps and show it on my form instead. Whilst it's doing that, I'll show you another option that we have. So if I come back into Power Apps, and we'll basically start from some data instead. Maybe I want to create a full application based off that training request data. I don't just want to modify the form, because if I modify the form, I've still got to go to SharePoint first to add information. So let's look at saying, well, let's create a new app. I'm going to start with the data. And I'm going to tell it to go and connect to SharePoint. To SharePoint list. I'll go and grab my, there we go. So that new form doesn't have the attachments on there, even though I haven't changed the configuration of the list to hide that. So basically this one's still being pulled. This form is now saved in the SharePoint environment, but we can make this look a lot better than Microsoft give us out of the box. All right. Let's just grab this URL. one, I'm going to import SharePoint list, give it the URL, tell it the list, and it will automatically build me an app very quickly. Very quickly, he says. It's, yeah. Close that down as well. Well, normally you can create a list, create an application directly off a list. I might leave this going in the background and come back to it and realize the experience has moved to something new and we're in preview again. So leave this one running. We'll cover some Power BI and then we'll come back to it in just a moment. So the last element that we're going to go through this morning is Power BI. So with Power BI, we are looking at our data, we're looking at how we visualize it. We want to help make decisions based off that information. So we can connect into our data. We can then use it to analyze that data and start to sort of pull out some insights in terms of what those numbers are actually telling us. The reports are all interactive as well. So we can start by having one particular visual element at the top, apply some filters, and those filters are going to then apply to every other element on our report or on our dashboard. We can still go and connect into a number of different areas. We can have on-premises data if we want to put in a cloud gateway connector. We can go and connect to online sources of information. So there's a few different options we've got in terms of how we get to our data. Yeah, lovely. I can just see on the other side, it's yeah, it's really not looking happy. Typical. Right, we then also have all of the integration into kind of Microsoft tools. So we can go and pull data in, start off with an Excel, and if that's not quite how we want to see it, well, then we can go into Power BI. But we can still push those reports out into applications like SharePoint. So go and show me my dashboards and my reports directly in a SharePoint site, or integrate them into a Power App if I wanted to go and do that instead. Now, that also means that we can go and have our data available on mobiles. So with all of the Power Platform, there are mobile apps available. We can then sort of go through our authentication mechanisms in order to view, in this case, view and interact with all the reports and dashboards on the go. Now, from a licensing perspective, there's a little more to Power BI. So you have Power BI Desktop included, but that is pretty much the kind of a basic free version. It's going to allow you to create and view reports and dashboards, but it's only available to that individual. We can't then go and share those reports with somebody else. If we want to share a dashboard or a set of reports with other people, that's then where we need all of those people to be licensed with Power BI Pro as a minimum. Power BI Pro is obviously sort of giving you the extra collaborative features. It allows you to publish reports into the Power BI service. So we've got that uplift from that. The premium license is has got some more advanced features that you might need from larger organizations. So enhanced performance, enhanced scalability, slightly better sort of analytics capabilities. But most organizations will be able to work with Power BI Pro. Power BI Embedded is a slightly different animal because it's not a per user license. You're effectively hiring a server to host your data, host your reporting services on there. So that's why the price varies depending on requirements. So we've effectively got a monthly charge for hosting that service. Excellent. Yeah, I'm not sure what Power Apps is doing on the other side for me. Right, so in terms of, yeah, let's see how we get on with this. Right. So one of the direct points of integration that we have with Power BI is, as with the rest of the Power Platform, we're able to go in to be able to say, well, I want to directly connect this data to Power BI. So if I say, go and visualize this data for me, it's going to have a very sort of rough attempt at it. It's going to pull in some visualizations for me and create a very basic report. So once it's done this, we're still able to kind of interact with it. We can change the change the graphics that are being used, things like that. So some of these are probably not going to be very meaningful in terms of what they're displaying at the moment. So a count of surnames by course date, well, not really that useful. So we can then go in and say, all right, well, instead of this, let's look at course itself, or let's sort of switch to how many people are on a particular course. So we've got a sum of there we go. So effectively we can start to change these around to be able to say, well, if I'm looking at a specific type of chart and I want to adapt it to then start to filter out other sort of data on there. We can see, because I've literally selected this one point on the line graph, all of the other visuals are then instantly filtered to use that. So this data is kind of quite a small set, so quite difficult to sort of get to grips with that. But within Power BI, and we've got a lot of learning resources. Within Learn, it will show you some sample data as well. So let's look at this regional sales example. So this is where Microsoft have put together a much larger data set to kind of be able to demonstrate the capabilities behind it. So here we've actually got multiple reports available. I've got a win-loss overview at the top and an industries overview. But then if I want to start to sort of click through some of the visuals again to understand, well, what do things look like in this part of America? What about in Florida? How does that sort of affect the numbers? And as you're clicking through the visuals, everything else is then sort of getting filtered accordingly. So understand what Florida is, and then sort of goes and slices all of the other data to match that particular selection. Lots of different visuals can be used here, whether it's maps, whether it's full sort of Excel style sort of tables that we can put in. You can also sort of put a Copilot against this to be able to interrogate the data and suggest trends that have been that can be sort of extracted by Copilot against this particular data. So, sorry, the Power Apps side of things has decided not to play today, but hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into the kind of the three main areas of the Power Platform. So, automations with Power Automate, apps with Power Apps and those customizations, and then we've got Power BI in terms of the analytics and viewing your data. So going to be around for a few more minutes if there are other questions. I haven't looked at the Q&A at all, so I don't know what's going on up there. But,
I think there was some questions. I met with a client earlier this week, Mike. Probably a question that links into both Power Automate and Power BI. The questions were more around, quite generic, around how Power Apps, so Power BI, Power Automate, how they link into third-party systems, whether that's cloud-based third-party systems or on-premise applications, and just the general consensus around there. So I don't know if you could quickly cover that.
Yeah. Well, if they are connecting to data within Microsoft 365, they will already have access on the whole to that. It is, if it's still Microsoft, but it's outside of 365, so thinking Azure or SQL again, that's premium license, but you can still go and set those up. There are a lot of third-party connectors available as well. If you wanted to connect to, things like Jira for task management, or if you wanted to create a flow that monitors X for comments about the organization, you can connect into sort of Twitter, X, LinkedIn, things like that, run sentiment analysis within Azure, and then be able to say, oh, it's a positive comment, go and put it on the intranet, or it's a negative comment, let's go and find who the account manager could be and get them to deal with it, or send it to the comms team. So you can go and connect with loads of data, loads of different services out there. If a connector doesn't exist, you can create your own custom connectors that expose the actions that you want to take on a particular application or service.
Yeah, so not restricted to 365 or Microsoft, which is good news.
No,
brilliant stuff. Thank you very much. And again, the recordings will be sent out of the webinar for everybody. Thank you for attending. Thanks for everybody's time. There will be an email to follow up with that link to the recording, but also with contact details. So again, if you're running into any challenges with this, or if it sparked a conversation or a debate internally, and you'd like to know a little bit more, please get in touch and we can arrange an initial discovery call over Teams and find out what we can help you with. As always, feedback is welcomed. If there's anything that we've not touched on today that you think we could potentially touch on in the future or create a webinar on, then please let us know. The next webinar is next week, and we'll be covering Copilot.
Yeah.
So we're really getting into the AI side of things. So looking forward to that. So please join us on that. Thanks, Mike, for your time on that. Thank you for presenting all that information. That's been really useful, really good, really interesting. So thank you, and thanks again for everybody attending. Hopefully see you all next week.
No problem.
Cheers.
Thank you for your time.